I need to catch my breath. So
Okay. Alright. Ready? At the end of this debate, the question you need to answer is what does the negative alternative do for you? How do you take us back to the hood and help break down systems of oppression through the idea of hierarchy? They gave you some bullshit theory answer, said we need to focus on nutritional needs of our children. But what is that? What does that do to end other forms of violence and independent animal abuse? How does that stop the kid gun getting killed? How does that help you navigate the hood where cops are constantly surveilling? One answer they provide from the two and is that, well, the food options that he gets stops the consumption of flesh. But what does that do for the Mexicans picking your fruits and your vegetables? What does that do for Jose? What does that do for Lenny? And people like him whose peoples are used to pick the fruits and vegetables that you are consuming every day. You do nothing to change that material violence that is done to their bodies just by stopping the consumption of flesh. Now, the other argument that he makes is that saying that black women aren't seen as human proves why the kick cultures. No, this proves why the 118th century of black queer women allows us to bring to light the idea, the very concept of speciesism in the first place, specifically our use of Yamaya as a gender and species fluid Orisha allows us to bring to light all these different intersecting forms of oppression. Now, the other argument he makes here is that we need to ban fishing. But if you listen to what Stephanie said across to the 1AC, and when you asked her about boats and all that, she said no. Before we can do any of that, we need to have an ethical relationship to black queer women, which means that the 1AC is a prerequisite to ever understanding any ideas of ocean exploration, which means the 1AC would say no to all those things and bring to light all those forms of oppression. They say that collaboration is key, but they are going a very real dissent, which is the opacity dissent. That he has not answered the question of how whiteness hinders him engaging in these sort of moves. Probably a reason why their collaboration is a false idea. In fact, it should be a coalition, and black women should lead it so that you can sit down and listen to what people like Stephanie have to say in the first place. Now, the last line, the one in our says that we can't look at race or sex because it obscures the relation, the overarching structure of anthropocentrism. One, this is a false distinction. That is hierarchy. That is the major structure. Hierarchy allows us to see all other forms of oppression. Secondly, this means that their view of the alternative would obscure race and sex or sexual relations as only one part of a large system of anthropology, which means that they would be put to the margins. Now, also, they say we said that they aren't queer, which means it's a static definition of queer. No, the reason we say that you aren't queering shit is because you haven't done shit. The only manifestation of your alternative that you have proven to us is the reduction of the consumption of flesh. But what does that do to stop other forms of violence that are independent of that? The only answer that was given to us in the block was about a new way of thinking, but it's not proven how you can connect the performance of the negative to that new way of thinking. Only the 1AC's performance allows us to do that. Now, the role of the balance is demanding the respect of black women, specifically the body of Yamaya. You look at this specifically. There is no reason as to why using the disidentificatory use of Yamaya allows us to queer gender and species, which would rupture the entire anthropocentric structure. And also, they said we don't get a perm, but the perm was duly apt. We proved that the apt solves through the use of Yamaya. That means that we've solved for all of their impacts. The other argument they have here is that self-determination is European. He doesn't really go for this, but the argument that we're making is that when we say self-determination or homemaking, this is not in the European traditional sense, right? Rather, it's a creation of something new. I read this piece of Nelson evidence in the 2AC that says that Afrofuturist discourse, this laying out of our visions of this future, allows us to break free from all those conceptions and create new conceptions that are not understood by the actual humans, i.e. white people, which is probably a reason why Joe doesn't understand this shit, right? They also, I like to call to attention what Stephanie makes an argument about in the 1AR about this idea of tone policing, right? Where Joe gets up and says, well, you're making jokes and that stops the sort of growth of my sort of growth. And Stephanie's like, I'm dead serious, right? That is tone policing that white people have done to black females for years and years. This idea that, oh, why are you being... Yeah, you want to spend seconds?
Yeah, give me that 10 seconds.
Yeah, here.
So when he talks about, when he does that tone policing, what that comes, like, what that means, what the reason why that's a problem is that instead of hearing the anger, instead of hearing the argument that I'm making, instead of hearing me call him out on the oppression that he's committing in this round, he focuses on my tone, so he gets to skirt his responsibility to change his actions, to be accountable for the things that he did that were fucked up.
The only method, the only option that makes sense in this debate is the method of the 1AC. We have proven how our Afrofuturistic visions are something that have been used and have manifested in our real lives. People like Birch, people like Shanara, people like Stephanie are the example of black mothering, right? Even though Birch is a quote-unquote hetero male, does not stop his ability to engage in that mothering. We have shown how that manifests and how we can bring the future here. The 1AC is an offering to Yamaya, not offering like fish, but the offering of ourselves as her children. And that allows us to bring the future here.